Imagine a world where the unthinkable becomes the norm, where the most improbable events shape the course of history. This is the realm of the Black Swan Theory, a captivating concept that unveils the hidden power of unexpected occurrences to revolutionize our understanding of risk, resilience, and the very fabric of reality itself. The Black Swan Theory, or theory of black swan events, is a metaphor that describes an event that comes as a surprise, has a major effect, and is often inappropriately rationalized. After the fact, with the benefit of hindsight, the theory was developed by Nassim Nicholas Taleb to explain the disproportionate role of high-profile, hard-to-predict, and rare events that were beyond the realm of normal expectations in history, science, finance, and technology. The non-computability of the probability of the consequential rare events using scientific methods, the psychological biases that blind people both individually and collectively to uncertainty, into a rare event massive role in historical affairs, unlike the earlier and broader black swan problem in philosophy. Taleb's Black Swan Theory refers only to unexpected events of large magnitude and consequence and their dominant role in history. Such events, considered extreme outliers, collectively play vastly larger roles than regular occurrences. More technically, in the scientific monograph Silent Risk, Taleb mathematically defines the black swan problem as stemming from the use of degenerate meta-probability. The phrase black swan derives from a Latin expression. Its the oldest known occurrence is the poet Juvenal's characterization of something being rara avis in terris. Negro Camilla may signal when the phrase was coined. The black swan was presumed not to exist. The importance of the metaphor lies in its analogy to the fragility of any system. A thought, a set of conclusions, is potentially undone once any of its fundamental postulates is disproved. In this case, the observation of a single black swan would be the undoing of the logic of any system, a thought, as well as any reasoning that followed from that underlying logic. Juvenal's phrase was a common expression in 16th century London as a statement of impossibility. The London expression derives from the world presumption that all swans must be white because all historical records of swans reported that they had white feathers. In that context, a black swan was impossible, or at least non-existent, after Dutch explorer Willem de Vlaming discovered black swans in Western Australia in 1697. But her metamorphose to connote that a perceived impossibility might later be disproven. Taleb notes that in the 19th century, John Stuart Mill used the black swan logical fallacy as a new term to identify falsification. Black swan events were discussed by Nassim Nicholas Taleb in his 2001 book, Fooled by Randomness, which concerned financial events. His 2007 book, The Black Swan, extended the metaphor to events outside of financial markets. Taleb regards almost all major scientific discoveries, historical events, and artistic accomplishments as black swans, undirected and unpredicted. He gives the rise of the internet, personal computers, World War I, dissolution of the Soviet Union, and the September 2001 attacks as examples of black swan events. Taleb asserts what we call here a black swan is an event with the following three attributes. Second, it carries an extreme impact. Third, in spite of its outlier status, human nature makes us concoct explanations for its occurrence after the fact, making it explainable and predictable. I stop and summarize the triplet rarity, extreme impact, and retrospective predictability. A small number of black swans explain almost everything in our world, from the success of ideas and religions to the dynamics of historical events, to elements of our own personal lives. Identifying a black swan event based on the author's criteria, the event is a surprise. The event has a major effect. After the first recorded instance of the event, it is rationalized by hindsight, as if it could have been expected. That is, the relevant data were available but unaccounted for in risk mitigation programs. The same is true for the personal perception by individuals coping with black swan events. The main idea in Taleb's book is not to attempt to predict black swan events, but to build robustness against negative ones that occur and be able to exploit positive ones. Taleb contends that banks and trading firms are very vulnerable to hazardous black swan events and are exposed to unpredictable losses. On the subject of business in particular, Taleb is highly critical of the widespread use of the normal distribution model as the basis for calculating risk. In the second edition of The Black Swan, Taleb provides 10 principles for a black swan robust society. Taleb states that a black swan event depends on the observer. For example, what may be a black swan surprise for a turkey is not a black swan surprise to its butcher. Hence, the objective should be to avoid being the turkey by identifying areas of vulnerability in order to turn the black swans white. Epistemological approach. Taleb's black swan is different from the earlier philosophical versions of the problem, specifically in epistemology, as it concerns a phenomenon with specific empirical and statistical properties, which he calls the fourth quadrant. Taleb's problem is about epistemic limitations in some parts of the areas covered in decision-making. These limitations are twofold, philosophical and empirical. The philosophical problem is about the decrease in knowledge when it comes to rare events, as these are not visible in past samples, and therefore require a strong a priori, or an extrapolating theory. Accordingly, predictions of events depend more and more on theories when their probability is small. In the fourth quadrant, knowledge is uncertain and consequences are large, requiring more robustness. According to Taleb, thinkers who came before him, who dealt with the notion of improbable, such as Hume, Neeno, and Popper, focused on the problem of induction in logic, specifically that of drawing general conclusions from specific observations. The central and unique attribute of Taleb's black swan event is high profile. His claim is that almost all consequential events in history come from the unexpected, yet humans later convince themselves that these events are explainable in hindsight. One problem labeled the ludic fallacy by Taleb is the belief that the unstructured randomness found in life resembles the structured randomness found in games. This stems from the assumption that the unexpected may be predicted by extrapolating from variations in statistics based on past observations, especially when these statistics are presumed to represent samples from a normal distribution. These concerns often are highly relevant in financial markets, where major players sometimes assume normal distributions when using value-at-risk models. Although market returns typically have fat-tailed distributions, Taleb said, "I don't particularly care about the usual. If you want to get an idea of a friend's temperament, ethics, and personal elegance, you need to look at him under the test of severe circumstances, not under the regular rosy glow of daily life." Can you assess the danger a criminal poses by examining only what he does on an ordinary day? Can we understand health without considering wild diseases and epidemics? Indeed, the normal is often irrelevant. Almost everything in social life is produced by rare but consequential shocks and jumps. All the while, almost everything studied about social life focuses on the normal, particularly with L-curve methods of inference that tell you close to nothing. Why? Because the bell curve ignores large deviations, cannot handle them, yet makes us confident that we have tamed uncertainty. Its nickname in this book is the Great Intellectual Fraud. More generally, decision theory based on a universe or a model of possible outcomes ignores and minimizes the effective events that are outside the model. For instance, a simple model of daily stock market returns may include extreme moves, such as Black Monday, but might not model the breakdown of markets following the 9/11 attacks. A fixed model considers that known unknowns, but ignores that unknown unknowns, made famous by a statement of Donald Rumsfeld. The term unknown unknowns appeared in a 1982 New Yorker article on the aerospace industry, which cites the example of metal fatigue, the cause of crashes in combat airliners in the 1950s. Taleb notes that other distributions are not usable with precision, but often are more descriptive, such as the Fraxel power law or scalable distributions, and that awareness of these might help to temper expectations. Beyond this, he emphasizes that many events simply are without precedent, undercutting the basis. In conclusion, the Black Swan Theory, conceived by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, offers a compelling framework for understanding the profound impact of unexpected events that defy conventional predictions. By highlighting the disproportionate influence of rare and hard-to-predict occurrences, Taleb underscores the limitations of traditional risk assessment models and the inherent uncertainty inherent in complex systems. Through the metaphor of the black swan, Taleb challenges individuals and organizations to cultivate resilience and adaptability in the face of unforeseen challenges. Ultimately, the theory prompts a re-evaluation of decision-making processes, advocating for a more nuanced approach that acknowledges the fragility of systems and the need to anticipate and mitigate the effects of black swan events.